I gotta let. Hello, how is it going out there? My name is Liz Marcucci. I've got Chris and Natalie here, but we'll get into their introductions in a moment. Thank you for joining us today for this Ask Us Anything panel here at MemoryFox. I am so excited. This is my first time I get to host one of our webinars, filling in for Carly Euler. And so I was thinking it's the last day of our summer storytelling blitz, and we're sharing our favorite moment from July. So if you want to pop into the chat your name, your organization, and something you really loved from this month, please feel free to do that. We'd like to celebrate your summer. Thank you for joining us, and especially to everybody who went ahead and submitted questions ahead of time. We really appreciate it. I cannot wait to dive in. Before we do, I want to let you know that this session is indeed being recorded, and so we will be sending out that recording to everybody tomorrow. I also want to encourage you to participate. This is an interactive session, so please continue to ask questions in the chat, and I will do my best to pose each one to our panelists. Speaking of, let's introduce my two wonderful colleagues here on our webinar. First, we have Chris Miano, the founder and CEO of MemoryFox. Chris was born and raised in Buffalo and spent 8 years in the Army, traveling around the world and learning about the power of storytelling as a tool to connect people across many cultures, generations, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Chris is going to share more about his backstory and how MemoryFox came to be shortly. Welcome, Chris. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for hosting.
Our next panelist is the fabulous community engagement manager here at MemoryFox, Natalie Monroe. Natalie works closely with our customers and has a deep knowledge of authentic storytelling. She has previously worked in the nonprofit industry with the military to agriculture movement. At this position, she had the opportunity to tell stories of veterans turned farmers feeding our country. Here, she embraced content creation and the power of video messaging. She's excited to answer your questions about MemoryFox features and visual storytelling. Hi, Natalie.
So good to be here with you all, with you both, Liz. Awesome to be here for your first hosting. Congrats.
No, thank you. I am honored. We're gonna dig right in to our first question for Chris, which comes from Caroline. How did you come up with the name MemoryFox?
When I was thinking about this, I wish it was like a super exciting thing that like came to me in a dream or something like that. So originally Memory Fox was built to interview pre-dementia family members to be able to get their life stories. And so I came up with it in an entrepreneurship class when I was in school. And I always like the ideas of branding around an animal. I just think it's really fun and it can really kind of crystallize the theme and like the feeling and the vibe of the brand. And so I was literally just sitting around a table in a cute coffee shop in Buffalo with some other kids in my class, and we were like, memory elephant, memory, and we were like working through all the different permutations of what it could be. And Memory Fox was the one that stuck. And I think, foxes are like artful and they're clever. But what I like most about it is they have dens and they keep things in their den and they protect
Mm.
their den. And I think that's like a really nice idea in terms of protecting and securing people's stories, whether it's for elderly or it's for nonprofits and social good. Yeah, so that's how that's how it started. Not super exciting. It was almost Memory Elephant though, but I couldn't make that one work.
I mean, that's a saying, right?
Yeah,
Elephants have good memories. I get it.
that's
I get
right.
where
That
you
was
were
like the best
going.
one, but elephant
Yeah.
is not an easy word. It doesn't flow
Well,
very.
and the joke's out that we're rebranding as Memory Horse. So now it just keeps
Yeah,
reiterating. But
Yes.
little did you know the orange was going to be such a bright and vibrant
that's
color too.
right.
Like every time we're at
Mhm.
events and conferences, people just like get so drawn to the orange fox. And it's amazing how you picked something that had a nice ring to the name. But also I love that it's like it got this icon that people are just so drawn to that cute orange critter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the foxes are always so cute. And I was gonna wear my fox for my birthday. Everybody got me a fox Hawaiian shirt with little foxes on it, but unfortunately, would probably not look super professional on this. My hair coming out of my chest.
Oh my
But
goodness.
very, very cool. The foxes are great. We always have so much fun with them.
Well, so there's the name Memory Fox, but also where did you come up with the idea, Chris? We had Andrea submitted that question. So where did
Yeah.
how did this all begin?
Yeah. So, I mean, I mentioned that it was originally for pre-dimensionality. The idea was you would be able to sit down in the same way that the call to actions work in the modern platform. Those would be like interview questions. And you would sit down with somebody and you could record, their life story. And it was actually audio only at the beginning
Mm,
because people didn't want video. And then I was working with we weren't sure how to like bring it to market. We were working with retirement communities, and it's kind of like it was kind of a tough sell. And so we were actually thinking about scrapping it because it really wasn't coming together. And then a Naval Museum here in Buffalo asked if they could use it to interview veterans for a fundraising campaign. And I was
mm,
like, they're like, but it's going to need video. I'm like, okay, well, we can make that work. Like the structure's already kind of built in there. And it went really well. And then they introduced us a community foundation, United Way, and some other foundations. They were all like, look, video storytelling is actually like a huge problem for nonprofits. They have to have video stories. It's how they make money. And then COVID hit like a month later, and we were like, okay, well that was fun. I guess back to the drawing board. And then all of them were like, no, like we still need to collect stories. In fact, now we need them even more because we have these fundraising shortages. And so we were a part of a lot of like early COVID campaigns, if y'all remember those, where people were fundraising like specifically for COVID. And yeah, and so the kind of like grew from there. I remember Josh and myself on the sales team. We were sitting there and we would sit there for hours a day. Just we didn't understand email automation or anything like that. Emailing every nonprofit in the country. Like we went through a list of every single United Way in the country and sent them their marketing director an email. But that's how you grow it in the beginning, and then it sort of starts the snowball, and you get those positive network effects. So yeah, it's been a fun journey, and now we have a team of 8, 9 people, and
yeah.
it's really moving.
I really appreciate when I think of the word fox, I think of swift and nimble. And so when I hear that story, the way that you were able to nimbly make an adjustment and swiftly, add video and to give what the community needs, and you worked hard and all those emails, I don't the you're
It taught me very early. Well, it taught
yeah.
me very early about the nonprofit experience because nonprofits, like startups,
Mhm.
they don't have a lot of resources, right? And a lot of time they're forging new ground. And so there's a playbook, maybe like a vague playbook that's never quite the same for everybody. And I didn't really come from the nonprofit segment originally. And so, there was a big learning curve to be able to understand the nuances of that. And so that was a good lesson in the very beginning for like, to understand what it's like to operate with limited resources and kind of figure out things as you go. So it was a great, great learning adventure for sure.
Yeah, I love that you say that. These questions are flowing into each other because our next one is about limited resources as it pertains to stories. So, Natalie, this comes from Daniel. If you only have a few stories that you're using over and over again, how can you collect more?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to get into that. And I'll also say, Chris, just to close out that last question, I always marvel at the way what you thought almost shut MemoryFox down in COVID, the pandemic, actually boosted it, right?
Yeah,
Because
but I
QR
shouldn't laugh about it. This is
became
a very
such a
tragic
thing
time, but
that like
yeah,
nobody was using QR codes really much before the pandemic. They were
yeah.
kind of a dying art. And then that, everybody uses it so widely now. And it's the way that the collection tool of MemoryFox operates. So kind of cool to see something that like seemed like a limitation turn into a great benefit.
Mhm.
Okay, so for Daniel's question about how do we collect more stories? I think a lot of times, like I was just reflecting on this, that I think we convince ourselves that stories have to be something that's big and produced and maybe has to follow somebody along their journey over an extended period of time. And sometimes that makes it feel like we can only capture 2 or 3 because we don't have that like accessibility to get that many people's stories over time in that really like highly produced way. But we at MemoryFox really like to think more holistically about stories as a way to just simply share the impact of the work that you're doing. Show your mission in action, show all the things that you're doing daily as a team, show why people care about your cause. All those behind the scenes and the in-betweens and everything that people don't get the like real life peek into unless you're showing them. I know I talk about this quote that I love a lot. It says, stories are memory aids, instruction manuals, and moral compasses. So really thinking of a story beyond just somebody like kind of sharing their lived experience, which is super important too, but also like how can we use stories to supplement and kind of like shed a different light on the way on the work that we're doing in a different way. So what I would encourage you to do is think about like all those different voices out there, all the different perspectives in your community who can offer a lens into your mission. So that could be maybe like some of the obvious ones we think of are staff members, board members, volunteers, our program participants. All those people have great stories to tell, but also inviting people like your event attendees to share their experiences with you, why they keep coming back to an event. If you award scholarships or grants, that's a great way to kind of paint the picture of the impact you're having by awarding funding to these individuals in your community. And then like even going beyond those immediate people, there's voices like mentors who maybe help mentor the people that you work with, or like field experts. Those are great people to get their perspectives on. If you're more like research-based or educational based, they can make for really great storytelling. We talk a lot about like getting the extended version. So you're tapping into family members' perspectives. It's great to highlight the participant themselves, but let's also then, I'm going to steal this phrase from somebody I adore named Jen Love. She created this thing called constellation stories, where you're not just like staying within the nucleus, you're sharing the nuclear story, but then going 1 degree or 2 or 3 degrees separated to get like the testimony of a mother or a father or a sibling. Like, how did this program benefit my brother? Or maybe the teacher shares the transformation they see in somebody going through this program. So lots of voices when it comes to those family members, coaches. A lot of you maybe work with like case managers or partners and sponsors. And then lastly, I'll just wrap that up by saying donors also have really important testimonies to share. And I think it's so often overlooked that we just simply, the people who are donating to our cause, certainly they have their own origin story of what first brought them to us, why they continue to give to us, why they want to see our work in action. So inviting them in to share like what inspired your gift today, or why do you keep coming back to us? Why do you believe in the work that we do? And that can uncover some really, really powerful stories. I think a lot about this one story I heard told of, I think it's like a drug and rehabilitation center in Los Angeles. And this gentleman came in every Friday. He would walk to the front desk and hand the person sitting at the front desk a $5 or a $10 bill. Every Friday he would do this. And nobody ever really thought to ask until one day, like a staff member in the back saw this happening. And she walked up to him and simply said, like, what's your story? Why do you come in? I see you. I noticed that you come in every Friday and hand us a $10 bill. What's that all about? And he said, my son tragically passed away from a drug overdose. $10 was his weekly allowance. I don't know, maybe he was when he was a kid. And I come in and give that $10 every day in his memory so that this doesn't happen to another family. I don't want them to experience the loss I have. And so just those really powerful stories, like until you ask, you don't even know what you have out there to highlight.
Yeah, and if I could piggyback on that, because I think you mentioned some really important things, is based on our research and people we've talked to, is when you do give someone a platform to tell their story, obviously you get the story, for the purposes of fundraising, but also you now have a better connection with that person. I saw this stat. I never found the actual stat. It's just one I've heard from people a lot. But someone is 3 times more likely to donate if they do one other thing than donate. And so that could be they volunteer, but it could be that they share their story of why this is important to them, and they'll be more likely to donate again. And obviously, if someone shares their story, they're more likely, those are the people, those are your your superstars, the ones that you want to focus a little more attention on. So I think it also builds connection, but also another reason that like pushing, like collecting a wide array of diverse stories from a lot of different people is it's sort of like a welcome sign. Stories are a welcome sign for a lot of people. So if you're an organization that has nothing to do with veterans, but you share the story of a veteran who is a part of your organization on Veterans Day, well, now I, as a veteran, see that, And I know that that's a place that's welcome for me. And so I may be insecure about joining new organizations as a veteran because I'm like, oh, are they going to think like I'm a super conservative or super whatever? And like, but now I see that somebody there is like me. And so when you're sharing a wide array of stories, that helps bring in volunteers, it helps bring in money, but it also just builds connection with your community. So it's just nothing bad comes out of it, as long as you're doing it the right ethical way.
Yeah, and
I
I'll
love
tell
it.
you,
Oh,
sorry, Liz.
no, go.
I was just thinking like one of my, beyond just, asking people to share their involvement with you, one of my other favorite uses I've seen of MemoryFox is to educate on the work that you do, and to do that through storytelling, which I think we often don't like compare those two or kind of put those two together. But just thinking to several years back, we worked with an urban league in metropolitan Seattle, and still to my day, one of my favorite uses of how they utilize the tool. And basically this was, throwing it back to the pandemic times again, they were hearing from a lot of youth, like kind of middle school age kids in their community. They had a lot of questions about the coronavirus and the vaccines as well. And so they saw that as an opportunity to educate through stories. And so what they did is they like ran this campaign through MemoryFox where they sent out this link to all these middle school age kids who had questions. They asked them to just hop on their device, record the video of them asking the question that they had. The team at Urban League then took those questions, those video questions, and sent them to trusted doctors in their community and said, hey, can you answer these for us on video? And then they took the questions and the answers and they wove them into this really nice produced piece that they were able to send out to like over 1,000 people in their community all at once. They couldn't, because of those times, gather together in the town hall setting that they would normally bring people in person together for. But it became a really great way. And I say this a lot, but they could have easily have just done that as like a FAQ kind of question and answer sheet on their website through text, but how much more like humanized was it, and how much more personality did it give it by actually allowing these kids to share their questions through their own voice and their own faces represented there. So I think maybe like expanding our like preconceived notion and limitations of what storytelling is, and thinking about how can you weave stories into every touch point of what you're already doing, and the way that exists currently with your programs and your events and your volunteers, et cetera.
I am going to just jump into the next question because I feel like it just leads right in. But this one is also for Natalie from Linda. How do you benefit small nonprofits?
Sure. Good question, Linda. Okay, so I'm kind of like putting my small team hat back on and going back to my last role in the nonprofit space at Farmer Veteran Coalition, which we did have a relatively small team there, not as small as some who have like 1 or 2 person teams, but we were a team of 10 or less. And I just remember like consistently how it felt like, I'm sure many of you feel this way, like you're constantly being pulled in different directions. You maybe have competing priorities. You have to wear all the hats to get everything done. And I think naturally that can make it so hard to stay organized. So like, again, I think back to being there, I often think of like how my stories were in this like messy web of, some were stored in my email, some were on a shared drive or a server. Maybe like one of my colleagues had it on their computer that I somehow didn't have access to, or even like handwritten down on a little Post-it note because I jotted down that note as I was talking to somebody on the phone. And it just felt so impossible to track it all. That really, in my opinion, is the beauty of the story bank through MemoryFox, is helping all those pieces of content be streamlined into one unified cloud-based storage space, having all members of the team have access to it, but not only letting everybody have access, having ways to organize it, to filter for different groupings, assign tags. Like if you think about a story, like, oh, here's another example. So when I was at Farmer Veteran Coalition, I kind of unexpectedly got handed the annual report to oversee one year, which can be a huge lift, right? And I struggled to know even what stories to build into that report. That was like kind of the big stopper that kept me from moving forward on the project. And sometimes when we think about an annual report, you maybe get like a really great video in from your community or a great photo that you think, oh gosh, this would be so good for this year's annual report. But you may not likely be making that report for like 8, 9, 10 months down the road from now. And so to be able to tag in the story bank, like this is a great thing that I'm designating for the annual report. So when it comes time to make that content, all all you're doing is filtering for the materials that you need content for, and it's populating right there, helping you almost work as like an extra team member behind the scenes. That's how I kind of like to think about it.
Yeah.
The second thing I think of is just when you're a small team, that kind of naturally likely means you need to grow your awareness of your brand. And I think the easiest, the best way we invite people into our army of champions, so to speak, is by inviting them in through storytelling. So giving them that peek behind the curtain at what you do, giving them a reason to keep coming back to support you because they get to see like that tangible work that you're doing that helps like fuel their funding to you, or maybe even gives them a reason to like pass that content to a friend to say, hey, come be a part of this community and support this great mission and cause. So you are building your community by giving your mission a face and making your work really relatable.
I think that's fantastic. It reminds me too when I was on a small team out in Colorado and I had 3 different roles, and just the amount of time that it took to get everything done, having an easier way to collect stories. And we all worked in programs in the field. And so we all had all of these photos and videos and everything on our own devices, but we weren't storing them anywhere in particular. We just had them on our own, and then we had to dig into each other one on one and ask for those asks and wait for those photos to get sent or emailed. And so that story bank is such a great place for a whole team to collaborate. I love that.
That's an interesting point. I know we're going to talk about ethics in a second, but the idea of like keeping these stories that are so important to people, I think of like, again, I go back to veterans, but it could be anybody, is someone who is having an emotional moment in a video, and that's just like sitting on someone's hard drive that doesn't even work there anymore. Like
Hmm.
that's just like totally unacceptable, right? But it happens because it's impossible to keep it all. And that was sort of a foundational point of like why we built this the way that we did, is because yeah, there's just like a sadness in that. But I think also for smaller organizations, like one day you're going to be a big organization, hopefully. And
Hmm.
so establishing processes
Mm.
around the ethical handling of content and storytelling early is important, because it becomes more difficult to build those things as you scale, because then you're building new processes around people who may have different opinions on stuff. Whereas if you get those things, those flywheels going early in your organization, then it becomes easier to scale with them. And also, one day you're going to look back on that time and like this is the story of your organization. Like it is a beautiful thing. It's a thing coming to life. And it's like if you had never taken pictures of your child when they were young, you'd be like, oh, why didn't we take any pictures or videos? Like, that seems almost insane today, but that's true of any organization, is like you look back on those lean times for sometimes a little bit of clarity on things that become difficult as you scale. And so looking back on those stories and those times, I think is really important. And then you'll get to your 25th anniversary and you're going to show those things.
Hmm.
So I think there's just such a beauty in keeping those things.
Yeah.
And I was thinking a lot, or I focused a lot because my mind always goes here to the organization side, like how to keep everything nicely queued up on the back end. But you both kind of helped me think of the other wonderful benefit is even just the ability to source stories more widely and freely through the tool. Because when you're a small team, like, and Chris, this is what you certainly heard from those first 2 customers, MemoryFox customers, who said, we're so busy, like our team is so busy doing the actual work out on the front lines, boots on the ground. And we know the stories are there, but it can be so hard to get them if you don't have a direct way to collect that content from the individuals that you work with, or maybe you're not meeting with them one-on-one, so you don't have the chance to record them. The collection tool is so great in that you're just designing these very curated campaigns on the back end, and through a simple link, sending it out to anybody who you have the potential to collect content from. And same is true when we talk about events like galas, big fundraising events. Like certainly we know this, everybody does this these days. Everybody's taking pictures and videos at events, but they just live on those attendees' devices, on their mobile devices. So unless you have a really easy way to collect that content, that becomes lost marketing collateral for your team. So it's almost like, again, I'll go back to the idea that it's an extension of your team where you're helping you have like this team member working behind the scenes for you, getting this content simply by asking the people who attended an event to submit their photos and videos to then do recaps of last year and help you promote next year's event to bring more funders in.
You've both touched on it a little bit. Our next question is from Jessa, and it says, our website, your website, says that we are the #1 ethical storytelling tool, and can you explain more? And that Chris mentioned it, and Natalie also, in putting empowering the storytellers to share from their own voice. But if Chris, you want to start first, and
Yeah.
then we'll pop it over to Natalie.
Yeah, I mean that was part of the original learning experience for me is coming not from the nonprofit sector, I was just thinking, okay, they just want video. Okay, all right, let's just make it easy to click. Originally, we didn't have all the consent features and all those types of things. And so as we were building that, we learned very quickly that nonprofits, and I feel like I say this all the time, but they have such a hard job to try to stand out in the attention economy against for-profits that can do whatever they want, right? They can share AI, like that's a new thing, right? That wasn't around when we first started, but like they can share AI content, they can hire actors and actresses, they can hire all that type of stuff. But like nonprofits can't fake it. So that's already harder. Like they have to use real, authentic content, like without a question. But not only on top of that, it has to be ethically like collected and managed because these are real people's stories. And so a lot of what kept people from collecting a lot of stories is it being difficult to collect consent and manage that consent over the years of the use of a piece of content. So it's like that was a big piece, foundational piece, is understanding that nonprofits have an ethical code that they have to stick to. And when we work with those early nonprofits, they were like, "Well, it's really cool. I mean, we have ways of like sending a video out of myself talking to a lot of people, which is nice, and there's a lot of great tools for that. But there's nothing that like breaks down those barriers of ethics to be able to pull in a lot of content ethically and then be able to elevate those voices to be able to do the work of like we said earlier, right, of bringing people into your community. And so it's about elevation and doing it ethically. And so we have, of course, informed consent is like our North Star of everything is, and we're always trying to come up with better ways to do consent. If there's multiple people in a picture, like doing finger signatures, like there's all these cool things that we can do over time. But having that baked into the process was a huge early thing for us that separated us as an ethical tool. Also, the ability to withdraw consent, which is obviously something I didn't really think of until we started building this. Is like, yeah, what happens 3 years from now when that person is like, I don't want this to be a part of my identity anymore. I'm trying to apply for jobs or whatever. My life has changed. And so, what method is there for them to be able to at least be able to ask, to be able to give them that method? And then the last piece, I mean, I really think it's really a foundational thing is being storyteller centered and not extractive, right? Like we all kind of have a little bit of a punk rock ethos here, I think, where we like to think people first always. And the idea of like social media is like a very extractive tool and profit centered of like using people's stories and selling sadness to extend reach and get views and things like that. Whereas we're trying to flip that script where people can share their stories on their own terms. So
Mhm.
maybe you want a video, right? But they don't want to do a video. So we give them the ability to do text, which is something that, they should be able to do. Or upload pictures instead of a video. But they can do it in their own voice at their own time. They can try again. They can just do it on their phone or they could do it on their computer at home. But it's like not a camera shoved in their face, which is the tradition, which is there's a place for those big stories, your big money story. Maybe you do want to bring in like a nice videographer and do all those things. But for most of your stories, it's like put it in their court and allow them to be able to tell it on their own terms. And a lot of times you'll get a better story when they're able to sort of tinker with it. And so, I mean, ethics is never just one thing. It's a lot of different things, and sometimes it's just an ethos. And I think we practice that pretty well in everything we do. So it's really been an honor to participate in the ethical storytelling community. There's just so many great people out there who are pushing that agenda, and so we're just trying to be a part of it and trying to help it in our own way.
I love that you bring that up. It makes me think of compliance pressure. When you talk about somebody
Right?
standing in front of you with a camera, we feel a pressure to be compliant and to agree. But when you allow them to record in the comfort of their own home, that's they have the highest level of choice in how and what they want to share.
Yeah, they're like, I can't believe I said that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't ever want that. They're embarrassed when they get home and they're like, oh no, what if my cousins find out about this and my job and you know,
It
just
happened to me on the news once, and everyone in my apartment building gave me dirty looks for about a week.
really. Yeah, it
Yep.
happens. Oh, politicians do it all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, we have our ethical storytelling LinkedIn group. And I remember a while back, someone posted about a politician who was using someone's story against their consent as like a fundraiser, as a tool to get themselves elected. And we see it all the time, right? Like it's so gross. So, we're fighting the good fight.
What
Well, and
about
it,
you, Natalie? What would you add?
yeah, I mean, we hear this so often too that and Chris, I know you've heard it a lot, like when we've presented at webinars or at virtual events, like I think nonprofits realize how critical it is to tell their stories, to show their stories, but sometimes that can be hard with the populations that a lot of you are working with. So, like a lot of nonprofits that are working with like survivors of domestic violence or people in the foster care system, where those identities really have to be protected and kept confidential for obvious sensitive reasons. Or even like unhoused populations, food banks. There's so many different causes where like we know that people have sensitive stories that they might not want to share or that they may be willing to share so long as their identity isn't revealed. And we started hearing this so often. I mean, kind of inherently by the nature of the tool, one of the things I so appreciate about it is that it does allow that individual the opportunity to record their story in their own words, in their private space, in a way that's most comfortable to them. So that I say like right there kind of makes it so ethical by nature. Plus there's also the wonderful built-in consent, which is great because you're getting there often that they're comfortable with their story being shared publicly. But the more that we started to hear this question of like, what do I do if the people that I work with might have sensitive stories they might not want to share? The more our team really like doubled down and invested in like our tool isn't enough on its own. We need to supplement with education and resources and bring all the thought leaders together in this space to really help people understand how to do this better. And that is what I am so proud of our effort to launch the ethical storytelling report a couple years running now, and to create our narratives with integrity quarterly webinar series where we really are helping people understand how can you still bring positive light and positive transformation to these stories in a way that you're encouraging people to share because they feel proud about what you've asked them to share. And again, that goes to like all the campaigns built in MemoryFox. You get to decide exactly what kind of prompting question you want to ask somebody. So putting it in the most positive light and a positive spin helps uplift those really powerful stories. So somebody feels proud to share their positive transformation versus focusing on the negatives or that, poverty porn, as we so often refer to it.
Well, and the ethics have more than the effect of just being ethical. Like we genuinely see the more ethical you demonstrate yourself as an organization, the more likely people are to tell a story. And so if you just say, hey, email me your stories about your post-traumatic stress disorder, like you're not gonna get anything, right? Send them me via text message. It just feels gross, right? But like you follow this beautiful flow that has consent into it, that has that has the explanation of how it's going to be used and sets those expectations. Like that's a totally different flow, and so you're going to get better stories that way, and you're going to get more stories versus just being like, hey, can you email them to me or drop them in this Google Drive? Like I would never do that about a sensitive story because who has access to it? Where is it going? How, et cetera, right? We've all been there.
Yeah, building trust with your storytellers
Yeah,
is
it's a
so important.
demonstration. It's a
Yeah.
demonstration of trust.
Yeah.
And I think we've debunked that idea that donors want to give to sad stories. Like positive, powerful stories pull people in to keep coming back and funding the work that you do.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. We've talked about how ethical storytelling sets us apart, but this one's for you, Chris, from Amanda. How else do we set ourselves apart from other platforms in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah. And so I kind of have a weird answer. It's like a two-parter. One is we're very similar to a lot of in terms of ethical codes and things like that. One of the things that's been very exciting and fun for me, and I think us as a team, is to collaborate with a lot of these other nonprofit software companies who are solely focused on nonprofits. And like that's a specific thing because there's a code associated with that. So at a high level, there's so many incredible organizations run by incredible people with incredible customers. So at a high level, I think we're very similar. Just love all these companies and collaborating with them. But I think what we're different, and this might seem a little abstract, but I think about this all the time in terms of our North Star, is we are focused on content, not contacts. And what I mean by that is a lot of like modern software for nonprofits, the big boom, right? Was first boom was like CRMs, and then was a lot of like fundraising tools and things like that. It's about a lot of like existing technology is about giving you a pathway to say something. And now like using AI and a lot of like understanding of donor behaviors, it's about telling you what you should say. So you've got those problems solved of like the contacts of who you should be contacting and giving them a pathway to contact them. And then what you should be telling them, what they're interested in. But what we're focusing on is giving you something worth saying. And so I think that's an important pillar of donor engagement. And I think Lynn Wester would agree. She's always talking about these big pillars. And I think it's like having something really important to say and delight them in a way or inform them. Because what is the modern experience, right? People are used to everything coming to them. And everything they do is entertaining. Everywhere you go, you're just constantly being entertained and sold to at the same time. Like
Yeah.
that's just the new, every commercial is an entertainment now, right? And so where we come in is hopefully you wouldn't think of, but user generated content is the most entertaining content on the planet, even when it's not like funny or something like that. Like it's human, it's connective. And so that's what we're focused on is giving you something rewarding to share with your community of donors and whoever you're trying to influence, which is I think is an interesting wrinkle, and it's done very well for us.
That's wonderful. We are
There's a
go.
TikTok.
Oh no, go. Or do you have something?
Well, there's a reason TikTok is so popular, right? Just
Yes.
like you said, Chris, like that authentic user generated content is what people crave these days.
We talk a
Yeah,
lot
well,
about the social proof and people really getting inspired. They watch something, they like it, they enjoy it, and they want to participate in it as well.
well, there you just invented it, Natalie. TikTok for nonprofits. We'll just
Mhm.
spin that off of MemoryFox, but it's
There
like
we go. MemoryFox 2.0.
only social good stuff, no weird stuff.
Rebranding to Memory Talk. Is that
Memory talk. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Charlie's gonna appreciate this.
just that whole idea of like the TikTok space, the feed for social good, it makes me think of one of our great nonprofits that we partner with. She has this new thing she just started like 4 weeks ago. She's only on her fourth week now. She calls it Monday Minute. And all she does is she hops and she kind of like did a little spin off of Be Real, if anybody's familiar with that platform as well. But it's like her version of I'm going to be real, which I think is how Be Real got its name. But she
Mm.
basically like hops on every Monday on social platforms, on LinkedIn, on wherever she has her presence. And she, for a minute, talks about like, here's one thing good I saw last week that you, as a supporter of us or a monthly donor to our cause, made happen. And she just shares something wonderful she saw. It could be something big, it could be something little. And it's a minute long. It does not take very long to consume it. Probably doesn't take her very long to put together either. And I thought, what a beautiful thing. If we could just start having more nonprofits kind of adopt that model of their own Monday Minute and flood our feed with really wonderful, beautiful news to balance out all the like heavy things that we hear these days. That's kind of the dream, isn't it? To just like consume these great updates from nonprofits doing the really important work.
I love that.
Love it.
I'm gonna skip ahead just once because we have a question that came in from Anne Marie, but I also feel like it may attach to one of our questions that's coming up. How might Memory Fox benefit for-profit organizations like B Corps? But Amory also popped into the chat that how might you envision a nonprofit collaborating with those corporations to spread the word that business ethics, that's a mouthful, business, I can't say it, business ethics matter. What is that about?
Well, I think so one of the things I've always tried to build, and we haven't gotten it right yet, but this idea of making memory, I'm going to go out on a limb here, so don't
Uh-oh.
everybody hold me accountable to this. But like a way to make MemoryFox free and corporations foot the bill, but in exchange, the collection platform is branded with that corporation. So, for example, you're a local bank, right? M&T Bank is like a big one here in Buffalo. And if they were branded on your, like a sponsor, oh, very cool. I'm seeing your
That's
message, Anne
awesome.
Marie. Um, and like that's something we've been playing around with is like sometimes it's not so much like spread the word that business ethics matter. It's demonstrating a commitment to ethics by investing in nonprofits and helping them share their stories. And so it's like maybe like a little different angle on what you're saying. But sometimes I think showing it is the most important thing. And so for businesses who ethics is important to them, they could say it all day long, but if they demonstrate it by being co-branded with nonprofits in their community, well, now that branding is associated with these beautiful organizations, and I think a commitment to ethics is almost like natural to that. They'll just think that without even anyone having to say that. I know I think that about organizations here in Buffalo that are so committed to ethics. You see them in the nonprofit community all the time, and you never question their commitment because they show it all the time. So that's one way that we've been playing around with. And some customers have actually done it manually, but not with getting them to foot the bill, unfortunately. But I think there's something there in this sense of like co-branding alongside nonprofits in a way that's mutually beneficial, drives their mission forward, helps them elevate stories, but also the for-profit gets that element of business, like gets to demonstrate their commitment to business ethics.
Yeah, you hit on something really critical there, Chris. The show, not necessarily tell. By like displaying this, you're kind of helping people understand the business ethics that you're invested in. They always say like show not tell is the mark of a good writer, right? Somebody who can kind of show you instead of just telling you explicitly. And we talk a lot about that at MemoryFox of like, can you show your mission? Can you represent it through video and photo form? And you just kind of like triggered a thought of we do work with some nonprofits who are doing that, who are kind of reporting back to like corporate partners and funders who support them. So I think of like Hiring Our Heroes that we've worked with for a long time. They help like placed veterans who are transitioning back into their civilian careers into their next like career placement here in the States. And they have this really great like 6-week work internship program where they help put them like through this program to build some career skills. It's sponsored by CarMax. And they like take all these
Oh
great
yeah,
testimonies
totally.
that they get from the dozen veterans who went through this year's cohort. They say, hey, hop on video in 30 seconds, tell us what skills this program helped you build and what you're now seeking in your full-time employment. And they get some really powerful testimonies. They build them into what we refer to as a story page, which is just basically like a public web page that you can make a gallery out of. And gosh, there's some fun things going on the
Yeah, there are.
Talking about
chat.
food, that's all I think about.
And they put these like dozen testimonies in a page and send it back to CarMax to say thanks for your funding. It's branded with CarMax's logo, so in a sense, CarMax is getting that great shout out. Liz and I often show this to the customers we work with as an example of a story page they can build, and she joked that we should be getting royalties from CarMax for every time we
Yeah.
shout their name. But anyway, the great
It's
thing is like
sometimes,
they're showing that like by you funding us, here's the stories that support the money that you're giving us to make this program possible and what you have a particular vested interest in putting your money towards.
I'm so glad you asked that question, Emery. That was a really
Yeah,
nice.
really great
yeah.
question.
I really like it. We're gonna switch gears back to platforms and how MemoryFox works. So we both brought it, or you both mentioned it earlier, of people collecting content and it just being kind of on Dropbox or in Drive. And so Dawn asked, my stories are all over the place. How do I keep them in one place and can my team see them too? And this one is for you, Natalie.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. We did kind of, I was like taking myself back down memory lane to that. And I'll actually even go one step further and I'll tell you a quick little story of when I was at Farmer Veteran Coalition and I had, it was the 20th commemoration of the 9/11 attacks. And I thought, gosh, for so many of the veterans we worked with, this is the reason they chose to join the military, or if they were already serving, it absolutely completely changed the trajectory of their careers. So I invited them to reflect back on that day and how it impacted their lives. And I got about 7 people who submitted videos to me. They were very, very powerful on their own, as you can imagine, what people had to reflect on. But we worked with 30,000 veterans across the country. So 7 didn't seem totally representative of all the veterans that we worked with. Fast forward 2 months later was Veterans Day. And I thought, gosh, like, what a great moment to, rather than just asking for donations, let's just celebrate the reason we exist. All these veterans, let's celebrate their collective years of service. And I kind of had this like, visual idea of collecting a picture of each of them in military uniform, celebrating all branches, all eras, and building them into a really nice web page. And I thought if I could get like 100 photos, that would make a really beautiful collage to just highlight all these people that we get the opportunity to work with. I didn't know based on that last 7 that participated if people just weren't going to be up for this, but I put an email out anyway. And I was like legit so overwhelmed in multiple ways, beautifully overwhelmed, but also like frantically overwhelmed when 800 photos landed back in my inbox. And I had to one by one save them. I mean, at least they were in one unified space, not the web. The amount of time it took me to save them, crop them, like get them onto a shared drive where another team, you talk about team member access, another team member could come in and crop them too. I mean, it was like 48 straight hours. And so that I think, again, I would have given anything to redo that project with the MemoryFox tool. But yes, absolutely. Like joint visibility is huge. Not only like having all team members see exactly what assets you have, but having the consent tied to it there, knowing whose name this is. Like, have you ever, I'm sure many of you have found yourself in a place where you started an organization, you have some great photos and videos from years past, and nobody knows who the person is in that video. So like having the name tied to the content, having a quote tied to the content from them, being able to like filter and approve, know what publicly can go out that your team is all comfortable with. I mean, that is all features that are built into the story bank that just make operating so much easier and efficient.
It's kind of why hiring people at MemoryFox actually tends to not be too hard because we hire people who experience this problem and they're like, oh my gosh, how did this not exist when I did this in the past?
That's exactly it.
Okay, we're talking a little bit about features. We're talking about the history of where we're at now, but our next question is about the future. And so I'm going to start with you, Chris. But what features are currently in the works for MemoryFox and what's coming soon?
This is a very dangerous question. I did not approve this question. Anything I say is subject to change. No, we're very excited. We just hired a couple developers from a team that has a lot of experience in the nonprofit sector, and we've got a lot of great energy when it comes to just building improvements to the platform. So there's a lot of cool things on the horizon, but at a high level, right? The big thing is making it more integrated into the typical nonprofit tech stack of an organization, right? Pretty much every organization has a CRM, at least ones of a certain size. They use some sort of email tool like Constant Contact or something, or they use the CRM itself. The ability to collect donations, things like that is so we've got the stories and we've got this great story bank, but getting that all into the fundraising systems and integrating with them is a big piece of the future in my mind. Also, AI, I think it'll never solve the problem of creating content for nonprofits, which is why we exist, and I think we'll exist for a long time. But that doesn't mean we can't use AI to, you know, make our content transition it from raw content into packaged content that's social media ready. Or taking a bunch of content with a click of a button, being able to create a beautiful story out of it, right? All these cool ways to present it, that AI is actually a great enablement tool. Being able to use AI to be able to come up with campaigns that you have ideas for, or et cetera, right? There's so much you can do with AI, and I think we want to put that in there to be able to automate because everybody's very busy, right? And wouldn't it be nice with a click of a button to be able to take 10 videos and turn them into one video that's social media ready that you can then now we're integrated with Instagram and then you can just share it directly to Instagram. And then, oh, by the way, you can see insights on the performance of that piece of content. So things like that that are time savers that are able to, make people's lives easier, leveraging sort of modern technology. But then again, with an ethical lens over everything we do. And I hope that as we build those things, we become this place where nonprofits feel comfortable leveraging AI and the AI that we provide because we vet it and we make sure that it's geared in a way that's ethical. I know how important that is, and it's important to us. So those are the big things, I think. And Natalie, you're on the customer success team, so you think of things probably all the time that you hear from customers.
Yeah, I mean, I see two like huge values in MemoryFox, generally speaking, are one, our whole goal is to help organizations, nonprofits build that really intentionally curated bank of stories over time. So they have all the stories when they need them, rather than having a need for a story and whatever material and having to go out and scramble and get it. So that's one piece. But also, Chris, the second thing is really what you were alluding to, and that is like making things more efficient for these nonprofit workers who wear so many hats, have little bandwidth, are spread so thin, like, but you still need to put the great work you're doing out there. So like how can we leverage AI to, like, you're collecting the real content, but now like in an efficient way, turn it into something that you can go repurpose in all the channels. So I see a lot of good potential there. And I'll just say, as you alluded to, kind of like we're starting to tease and think about MemoryFox 2.0, which is not too far out on the distant horizon. Very exciting to think about what like our new revamped look can do to bring in some of these AI features and other like more efficiencies. But I will say I think the best features come from the people actually using the tool. So I have been totally appreciating listening sessions that we've been having with customers to ask them like, hey, how are you using it? What do you find most helpful? And what, if you could wave a magic wand and build anything into the tool, what would it be? Like, how can we make your life better? And those have really brought some great insights to life as we start to think as a team of like what we really want to build in for future features.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And I also love being part of those conversations too, Natalie, is hearing, how better we can help our customers have success and joy in using our platform and collecting these stories. We're at our final question. Can you believe it? It's 2:52 already here on the East Coast. So do you have either of you, final thoughts, something that you would want to share with our audience today, or something that we didn't have time to cover, or that you would just like to reiterate about MemoryFox?
Well, for me, like, I was thinking about what to say, right? But not that I saw the questions beforehand. But look, it is a tremendous honor to be able to work in the social good sector. And I think, and with a team that's all so committed to doing great things for the social good sector and working with people who are salt of the earth, great attitudes, not a lot of resources, right? But scrappy and figuring it out and focused on ethics and love and growth, right? And really attention to their mission. I think we could all be doing things in our lives. I mean, the people that work in nonprofits, the people here at MemoryFox, the people in the social good tech sector, everybody could be doing different things, right? But we're here, right? And we're supporting these missions, and this is truly a real honor to be able to do what we do every day. And there's never a bad day when you're doing great like things for people. And I hope that everyone, who watches this and all of our customers and just everybody, I hope that that you're doing the work that really truly makes this country great and this world a great place and humans a great, like we're all working through this together, right? It's not perfect, it's not pretty. And the stories we tell, They have warts, they have ums, they have ahs, and the people we serve have complicated lives, but we all keep driving on because we love people and we love what we do. And service is the highest calling that there is. And so, thank you to everybody who does serve in their communities and nonprofits. And I think what we do here at MemoryFox, the ability to serve in our capacity using the skills that we have, I think is just a tremendous honor. So it's really just, I want to thank everybody for committing to service. And because I do think it's the highest calling that there is to serve your community. So thank you all.
Well
Thank
said,
you,
Chris.
Chris.
Yeah,
Any,
beautiful.
yeah, anything to add, Natalie?
I'll get in my 360-degree stewardship pulpit for a moment and just kind of talk about what that means to me and what that can mean to all of you. And, just tossing it back to that Veterans Day gallery feature that I was hoping to share. A large part of why I did that back then was I really wanted to just highlight for our donors and supporters and volunteers, hey, these are all the wonderful faces of these veterans we get to work with. And it absolutely did do that. What I was not anticipating were how many veterans were going to come back at that request to share their story or their photo to say, thank you. Thank you for not forgetting about me, making me feel seen and heard and like I matter, and recognizing what this day is all about. And I could not believe, like, with the hundreds of people that were coming back saying that just completely changed my view of what stories meant. Stories, it is, of course, very important to steward donors, but really, like, it's more than that. It's stewarding the beneficiaries, the constituents, all the people that we exist to serve and work with. And I think we can really easily get wrapped up in that donor stewardship, but it's so wildly important to never overlook community stewardship and giving people the chance to share why the work you do with them matters and listening to what they have to say and helping that shape and inform your programming. And I'll kind of throw out one last example here. I don't know if anybody has had the chance, and if you haven't, Google it. I highly recommend it. The TED Talk that Dr. Bertrude Albert and Dr. Priscilla Zelaya, who are from the nonprofit called P4H Global. I'll type that in the chat. They did this great TED Talk that was all about, they started their organization based in Haiti. And when that huge earthquake hit Haiti years ago, they started getting all these donations in and said, oh, let's get people to donate shoes and clothes, and then we'll take all these wonderful contributions that we collected and we'll fly out to Haiti and deliver them. And they did that, and they got there and they saw the look on these community members' faces of just despair. And they thought, gosh, what happened? We thought we were doing such a good thing by delivering these goods. And local community members say, this is what I do for my livelihood. I make shoes every day to sell them at the local market. I can't compete with free. Same thing. I create these, I knit these clothes every day and sell them to be my livelihood and sustain my family. I can't compete with free. And they just realized they hadn't listened to what their community really needed. So I would just kind of charge you all with thinking about how can you be a better listener? How can you invite your community in to share and uplift all those stories in a way to showcase your mission to your supporters, and at the same time really listen to those who are the whole reason that you all exist.
Love that story.
I know, I'm speechless. Wow. Thank you both so much for sharing. I also,
Thanks for hosting.
oh my God, I've had
Great
so much
job.
fun.
Thanks, Liz. This is
Very
great.
What a
excellent.
wonderful hour in my MemoryFox journey. I will thank you again, Natalie and Chris, for being here. I have learned a lot from both of you today, and I'm sure everyone in our chat and participating here today feels the same. I do want to share a couple of links. I think it's wonderful. We've had a lot of conversations about AI, so I'm going to pop this one in here. But our next Narratives with Integrity panel is going to be held on August 26th, and this panel has 4 incredible panelists who are doing fabulous work navigating AI for the nonprofit sector. So this entire panel will be focused on when it is and isn't appropriate to use AI in storytelling, and we hope to see you there. And then the last is, if you want to learn more about MemoryFox, we would love to meet with you one-on-one and discuss your unique ethical storytelling goals. I'm going to drop the link in the chat to book a demo if you'd like to meet with us. But most of all, I want to thank you all for your service to your communities and your commitment to making the world a better, more ethical place. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you all.
Thank you for everything you all do.
Thank you for being here.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.